What is going on, Secondhand Talent family? It is Steiner here with another episode of Secondhand Talent. Real quick before we jump in, shout out to Tenacious Toys for the desk candy, and shout out to Mr. Luke Chube for providing our showcase toy of the season, the Lo-Fis. And there are limited edition Secondhand Talent Dr. Decibel pins available on secondhandtalent.com. Now we need to get right into it. This week's guest is Tory Smith, the co-founder and CMO of Black Box Prompter. Tory, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Steiner.
Well, it is a real pleasure to have you on. This is it's a real pleasure to have you on. This is going to be a real treat because I know what the black box prompter is. Our audience doesn't. By the time this episode ends, they will know. And folks, you can use the code Secondhand Talent to get 10% off your entire purchase at blackboxprompter.com. All of that information is going to be in the description. But in the meantime, Tory, before we get into what exactly the black box prompter is and how it came about, I gotta ask, when I first reached out to you, that I had a show called Secondhand Talent, we made contact, and I gave you that title, Secondhand Talent. What did you think the first time you heard that term?
Oh, man. The word secondhand, you don't hear it too often, but when you do, I think of used goods, right? A secondhand store, right? So you got your new stuff, then you have your secondhand stuff. I've got a teenage daughter. She loves to go thrifting, going to the Goodwill bins and checking it out. She's getting secondhand stuff. A lot of value for not a whole lot of money. And so that when I hear secondhand, that's what comes to mind. And no shame by using secondhand goods. Man, I grew up when Dad was without a job. I mean, I had hand me downs. My parents were shopping garage sales, so there was no shame in the secondhand goods. But that was initially what came to mind.
Right on. Yeah, it's definitely not the first time. That's kind of been a recurring motif throughout the history of the show, is that it is something that is passed down or something that is found and
Hmm.
not something that was there initially. And, as our listeners know, and as you know on the show, we interview the villagers in the village it takes to make music happen, live and otherwise. Everybody else pretty much that's not on stage, and, sometimes people who are. But what you've created with the Black Box is something that is not just unique, it's quintessentially what this show is about. Using technology to further aid and develop the flow of live music. And as we'll get into, you know what? Why am I saying it? Why don't you say it? What is the black box prompter?
Oh man, it's so many things. It's yeah, but the pitch I normally give is it's really the world's first smart lyrics prompter or teleprompter. It doesn't necessarily have to be lyrics. I use those words interchangeably, but the smart teleprompter that really helps anybody giving a live performance, right? Whether it's an original musician, a cover band musician, an actor, a comedian, a preacher, pastor at a church or synagogue, anybody needing a visual cue, a rabbi at synagogue, sorry, anybody needing a visual cue for words. It's really a way to have something on the floor, out of the face, right, where the folks in the audience have no idea that you're using any kind of tool to get your visual cue, right? It blends in with the floor. It looks like a speaker wedge or monitor, right? Because and we'll get into the specifics, but it's another visual aid, right? And it's built in such a way where you don't have to have a prompter technician or a sound technician on the sidelines or side of the stage or wherever you are to turn the pages for you. You certainly can. We're gonna have a version where we can control it remotely. But if you want to be in control, whether it be bullet points, whether it be the lyrics to a song or whatever, and you want to be able to turn the page at your leisure, you'll be able to do that. But when I say it's a smart teleprompter and being the first smart teleprompter, what does that really mean? Okay, well, I'll give you a little bit of context. There are teleprompters have been around for decades and decades of all kinds, shapes and sizes. And more recently, in the past 10, 15 years, especially in the music scene, these lyrics prompters have started to come into the market. And we did some research on what exactly are these, what's the magic behind these prompters? What do they really do? And really quickly, we surmised that they show JPEG files and PowerPoint files, and that's about it. So you're taking a computer. It might have a Windows computer inside with another monitor and an HDMI and some sort of page turning device and scrolling device like a mouse or a keyboard would in the shape of a pedal, and be able to flip those pages and show. And that's how it's been for the past 15 years. And there's certainly nothing wrong with that. It's very, very simple. But what we decided to do was push the envelope and take it many, many steps further than that. Okay. So yes, you can show your PowerPoints, you can show Word documents, Notepad files, PDF, whatever. Yeah, yes, we can show all of that. We can pull up an internet browser, you can do all of that. But we take it many steps further. For example, I won't get into all the I won't what do we call feature preach? I won't feature preach. But I will give just a couple of examples since you asked.
We'll get into the features. We'll get
Yeah.
into the features. Yeah.
Okay, for sure. But I'll just give you a couple sneak previews, a couple teasers. Uh, One of the first things we launched with was something we saw in the market was at least in the cover band scene, the need to transpose your chords on the fly. Now, for us non-musicians, what does that mean? Well, your songs are always going to be in a certain key, okay? And your singer might be like, "Oh, that's too high. Can you bring it down?" Or your female singer would be like, "That's too low. Can you bring it up?" And the acoustic guitar
Guilty of
player
the former. Yeah.
is like, "Hey, I'm using a capo," and anyway. So you'll be able to take your chord
Basically,
charts.
there
Yeah,
can be alterations that happen in the music on the fly, and everybody needs to be able to shift their
adapt.
music
Yes,
accordingly and know
yes,
what they have the right hand know what the left hand is doing, so to
correct.
speak.
Yes, and so we support auto transcription or transcribing. So if it's in a certain key, you can go in and say, "Hey, it's in the key of B, but I really want it to be in the key of A. So I confirm it's in B. What do you want to switch it to? Oh, I want to go down 2 semitones or a whole step down into A, and bloop, bloop, and within like 2 or 3 stomps of the pedal, it transposes all the chords on the fly because we have built logic into the software. By the way, the software, not to reference Zoolander, but the software is is inside the box, right?
Are
You
you
don't have
saying
to.
the files are inside
The,
the
the
box?
files are inside the computer.
They're inside and the
Yeah,
computer is in this case inside the box.
the computer. Yes. So the short of it is, you don't have to go out and buy software. It's preloaded. I mean, I'll geek out for a second. So, no, it's not a Windows computer. It's not a Mac inside. Okay, this is using a tried and true platform. It's a Raspberry Pi motherboard, a little bit bigger than
Ah.
than a credit card. Okay,
I used to teach STEM courses, and
you're familiar, yes, and so I've been around many, many years.
for our users, or for our users, for our listeners and viewers who aren't familiar, take a look at it. Raspberry Pi, Pi, like the number slash letter. It's basically a mini computer board that you can build other greater things off.
Correct. Yes, and I think the operating system is typically going to be Unix or Linux based.
Linux,
Anyway,
or yeah,
I'm
I was
getting
gonna
I'm
say,
getting into the I'm getting into the
yeah.
the the, the, the weeds here.
I've only ever worked with Linux based ones, but yes,
I think,
Unix
well, Linux, I
occasionally
think
as
it
well.
spawned from Unix anyway, but you're right. It's Linux. It's using Linux, Wayland, blah blah blah. And if my business partner, he's the highly ranked software engineer that could really geek out. But we'll save that conversation for another day. But the short of it is, it's got tech built into it, right? It's got some really cool tech. It's got a feature called Sing Along that brand new. We just launched this at NAM a couple months ago, and NAM is the big music convention in Anaheim every year. And this what's cool is your audience can scan a QR code, right? That's unique to your box. You can scan it, and it's not to download an app. It's actually to pull up a web server that serves out the lyrics to the song, so that as you see them on the prompter, your audience can actually see the words in real time on their phone and sing along.
So if a band wanted to do, like, if they're filming a concert and they want to do a sing along moment and they want to make sure that everyone in the crowd has access to the lyrics if they don't know the words, this is a quick and easy way to
Correct.
make sure that everybody in the room or arena or stadium, whatever it may be, can immediately access those lyrics. And that could
Exactly.
make that that's a great way to facilitate some magical moments. That's really cool. Is
Yeah,
that
and
a you
that's
said that's a
brand
that's
new. In
a
fact, we have been pushing this out in the wild. I've had a couple. I'm a cover band musician myself, and I business partner came out for the last couple gigs, and we saw it in action, and it was just so cool to witness. Them kind of pulling up the lyrics and looking. Now, the downside is everyone's staring at their phone, right? They're not necessarily staring at the performer, but it's not a bad thing necessarily because a lot of us are staring at our phones anyway. I mean, it's 2025, right? We're
well,
staring, we're staring at our phones anyway. So
it's for moments, not for the whole show.
correct,
You know what I mean?
exactly,
It's
yeah,
kind of the type of thing where the singer could be like, "Hey, remember that QR code you scanned on the way in? Well, now it's time to pull up that web page. Like, we're gonna do some things."
yep, yep. So yeah, so it's one of those things. But that man, you talk about increasing interaction and engagement. And like I said, it doesn't have to be. It could be a concert. It could be. You mentioned doing, parodies. As a comedian, to just have that extra sensory thing happening in the moment, and to
Yeah,
capture that.
I can imagine with, I think about Weird Al, of course, but I like to imagine it with some of the parodies I've written, to be able to have a whole crowd sing the wrong words with me, so to speak, is kind of fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. So, and what's really cool too is, kind of like studying for a big test. When you hear it and you see it, the old index card method, it's very similar, right? You have multiple senses working. And so let's say you're an original artist with new material and you want your fan base to latch on and more or less commit to memory your new lyrics. Again, it's yet another way to have that burned into their brains, to where it locks into their long term. So yeah, so that's a new feature I have yet to see anywhere else. And again, and your listeners, I think, will appreciate this. Being those those guys that really make the production happen in a very professional manner, that are behind the scenes, right? Getting back to your definition of secondhand, because that's you educated me on really what this is really all about. Um, it's just one more tool in the tool chest, and you don't have to. The beauty of it is you don't have to go search for any lyrics. You don't have to open up a Google window and type in and fat finger it and that's not, what are all these at? You don't have to do any of that. You literally scan a QR code and it comes up within seconds, and it's just there. And so you talk about the immediacy, how
Now,
instantly it can come up. It's a game changer.
yeah, I'd been meaning to ask you kind of, how that was facilitated and operated, and that, I mean, that's incredible. Now, my question is, is it able? Can you like incorporate that on the fly, like to be like, hey, for it's going to be for this song, or is that something you would set up pre-show?
It's right
Just
now.
for
Yeah,
me to
right
nerd
now
out a little bit.
it's yeah. No, that's no. I love that, the fact you're asking these kinds of questions. Right now, it's preloaded. Right, you have a preloaded set list. Right, you have the songs in a specific order,
Mm.
and
Okay, so you
yeah.
could give access to the set list and not necessarily
Well,
one
what it is
song.
it's a sync. You're synchronized. So the box, you as the performer on stage, the songs that you're pulling up in the order that your set list shows them, right? Whatever song you're pulling up, whatever page, if you're on page 2, guess what? It's going to refresh and it's going to show page 2. No, I take that back. It doesn't do that. No, you still have to scroll. It actually dumps the entire song. I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. But the point is, whatever song you're pulling up is going to be the song that they see
Hmm.
on their phone. Now, if you were to skip a song and they try to go to next song,
That was
then
exactly what I
it
was
could
gonna be on
um,
my next question.
yeah, it could be out of sync. But the beauty is there's a button that'll say next song, and they can easily hit next song and see. Oh wait, I was on the old song. I'm gonna go to the next song. And there's even one. I think we saw the previous song. I will have to go back, but because it's a brand new feature, we're still tweaking it. But the short of it is, it should sync up, at least when the song first loads, with whatever you're seeing on stage as the performer. Whatever's on your black box, in theory, should be pushed down to the user.
I just love that idea as a digital memento as a fan, to be, for anybody who's using that to be like, this is what was happening, like when, and if you take a video of like what's going on and be like, this was this moment in this show and this song, and to be able to have that on your phone as well, because I'm that guy when I'm seeing a band that I like, at the time of this airing, it'll be right around the corner when I'm going to see God Street Wine for the first time in 7 or 8 years, and I'm incredibly excited about that. And you know it's just really cool to think of the possibilities that could be at a show like that, which is a show where like their music has, goes going back 30 plus years now.
Mhm.
They have such a huge canon. I'm the guy who would want to run up to the front and get a copy of that set list.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's exactly what I did at the 2018 show. I have the set. They played all my favorites. I have the set list to be able, if I'm sitting in the bleeds or if I'm in the back, if I don't have that proximity, I can still have that memento, which I nerd out about. And I love that.
It's funny you mentioned that. Even this is silly for me to say, but I run two. I'd say fairly at least locally popular. I mean, I'm in the Dallas, Texas area. I'm two different. I manage two different cover bands. One's an '80s band. One's like a '90s country band. At any rate, sometimes we'll have a really really good show, and a new fan will walk up and be like, "Hey, can I have a copy of your set list? Because we'll have the paper set lists on the floor, and would you mind autographing them?" And I was like, "Oh, that's," and we're just hacks, right? We're just cover, But apparently, they loved it so much they themselves wanted some sort of memento or souvenir as a memory.
I've got set lists. I'm not going to lie. There are definitely bands that cover bands or mostly tribute bands that I've
Yeah.
seen. I mean, there was a Steely Dan tribute band that I saw, that I absolutely loved the show, and I got a set list because who knows if I'll ever get to see Steely Dan. Uh, there's another one I was thinking of. Uh, Pink Talking Fish.
Hmm.
Um, they cover Pink Floyd, Talking Heads, and Fish, but um, yeah, no, I love having that set list, even though, yeah, they're not original songs to that band. That band plays them in an original way.
Sure.
Um, so, and I also, on your note about cover bands, there's to me, are you familiar with the artist Peter Gabriel?
Oh yeah, we cover Sledgehammer in my '80s band.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, shout out Bodachita. They do an amazing cover of Sledgehammer. But I was listening the other day. String Cheese Incident does a phenomenal cover of Salisbury Hill,
Hmm.
and and Munyon does as well. Shout out to my buddies in Munyon. And it was just absolutely, what I love about the String Cheese version is that they add this bluegrassy element to it, and both versions are so good, but the string cheese one is just like a little different. And it's always been my opinion that a cover band, a cover song, if it's going to be good, it has to be played, not necessarily be better, but played better than the original studio version.
Hmm.
And in order to be a successful cover band, you have to bring a level of punch that's almost a step above or a band that plays all originals because you're relying on the strength of material that came before you and doing it right.
Mhm.
I mean, to be a band, that's why I believe Dark Star Orchestra has so much acclaim, is
Mm.
because, to be a band that not just plays the Grateful Dead's music, but faithfully recreates shows note for note, that's a level of skill beyond most regular bands, I would say.
Sure. A lot of nuance to it. You're absolutely right. And it's interesting while we're on the subject of cover and tribute bands, you're right. Man, there are bands that just kind of get by and they'll half-ass it and it'll be okay, you know. And then there are bands that just take it to the nth degree, and um, I mean, I'll give you a prime example. I'm friends with one of America's first Dire Straits tribute. So shout out to my
I
friend
was I was
Andy
just thinking about Dire Straits.
Andy
That's
Pierce, one of
exact.
my favorite bands of all time. My friend Andy Pierce, he actually kind of looks like Mark Knopfler, but when he sings, he freaking sounds like Mark Knopfler. And so, if anybody listening, check out Dang Straits, brand new tribute band, America's first Dire Straits tribute band. I'm gonna help. I'm gonna help them tour all over the country. They're out of Dallas as well, but really, really good dudes. But what I was saying was so me being a Mark Knopfler and Dire Straits fan, I'm kind of being that nerd. I'm that 2% in the audience. I'm like, all right, man. So are you using a pick? You better not be using a pick. Oh no, no pick. We're just fingering. Okay, cool. Well, do you have that really shiny resonator that you see on Brothers on the Brothers in
Yeah,
Arms
Brother in
stuff?
Arms. Yeah, yeah.
And
My
he's like, oh
favorite.
yeah, and he
Yeah.
showed it to me. I'm like, oh my god, what about the red Strat? Oh yeah, And I mean, you talk about to a T, like they are studying. They even have the biography. They have a Mark Ilsis. One of the band members had written a biography a few years ago, and they each bandmate studied the biography. And anyway, that's the kind that's the kind of level I'm talking about.
Well, I just saw Spafford at the time of this taping. I just saw Spafford last weekend, and they covered Money for Nothing. And I remember thinking when they put the opening lick, when it's Money for Nothing, um, I was like, are they gonna play it or are they gonna play it right? And Humphreys also a couple of weeks prior covered Layla. And it was a similar, like, are they going to play it or are they going to play it right? And both bands both times played it right. And there is a difference. There
Wow.
is a difference. It matters. It really, really, really does. And we can nerd out about this stuff all day. I mean, getting to your notes about being a parody guy. Um, parodies in particular, it's hard to, even for me sometimes, to sing the right words, let alone the audience. And it's cool to let the audience in on the joke on that level. But as a comedian, so I'm blessed, at the time of this airing, it'll be my I think 19th year, full year in entertainment. Um and it Yeah, 19, not September, 19 years. And I have a memory issue where sometimes I just blank mid-sentence. And I was asked to get back into stand up a little bit recently, and I have a piece of paper, not with, a teleprompter style, but like a few keywords, because if I have a blank moment, it's been years and years since I've done a show, I need
Mhm.
like a little cheat sheet.
Sure.
I'm not the type of person who would maybe have one like the biggest and best model, because I don't need my jokes written out for me, but I definitely need to be able to have a pick list that I can sort through in case I have an episode. And and for me, it's as I believe Pink Floyd called it, a momentary lapse of reason.
Mhm.
But I need help in that moment, and the audience isn't going to be the one to help me. So I think about a show that I just did at the time of this taping and one that I'm about to do in a few days. And I would love to have something like that because, getting back to what you were saying before, the as much as you can take away from what is between the artist and their fans, the better.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And and as a performer, your job is to give the best performance possible, where your audience feels something, a connection of some kind. You're pulling at their heartstrings, whether it be music or it could be comedy. You're making them laugh. You're touching the emotions. That is literally relieving stress. And for some people, that is the best therapy they'll experience all year. And you got to look at it from that angle, right? And as a performer, to give it your best, it's okay. I keep telling people, guys, there is no harm. There's no shame in using some sort of visual cue or prompter. I see a lot of noise, a lot of chatter, a lot of negativity and trolls, especially in the cover band scene. But you could paint
And
a
comedians
broad
and
stroke with comedians, actors, you name it. But they're
who
like, learn your effing lines, learn your effing lyrics. Well, newsflash, right? Even Elvis himself used a teleprompter, right? This is nothing new. Most of your, especially your older ones, but even some of your younger ones, the vast majority of your professionals filling out arenas. I mean, I've got, Steven Tyler's numerous times says he uses a prompter. I've seen James Hetfield of Metallica use, John Bon Jovi should be using a prompter because he messed up his lines the other day, and it was caught. There's a viral TikTok going around. Poor guy. But there's no shame. Most of your professionals do use some sort of prompter.
I remember as far back as at the time of this taping, I think this is actually the 15-year anniversary of the penultimate Jam in the Dam. Les Claypool, Yonder Mountain String Band, miss you, Jeff. The Bridge, the new Master Sounds at Humphreys McGee, and I have amongst my set lists, I have the set list from Humphreys from night 3, as well as the printed out lyrics of Comfortably Numb for Brendan to sing. And no shade, guys, but yeah, this has been going back, for more than 15 years that I can remember going into concerts. 4 covers mostly, especially by jam bands, and it's it's definitely something. I mean, in the stand-up community, I've always felt using notes or using any sort of assistive devices is a cop out. I'm putting that in air quotes.
Yeah,
I fully disagree. Technology isn't going to do the job for you. It'll never be the prompter telling the jokes. It's up to you to make what the prompter does come to life.
exactly.
And however, well, first of all, I mean, in that sense, I think there should be some grace for performers, especially comedians, because if you get into a rhythm and you're doing an hour-long set, and you might go on a tangent for 15 minutes and need to know where to come back to land.
Correct. Yeah.
And it's okay to have a little reminder, because it's a benefit not just to the performer, but to the audience as well, to then get a more cohesive show and not one that's a little more stuttering or stopped and started. It enhances the artist experience and the audience experience, in my opinion, or has the potential to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always tell people, especially in the live music scene, it's obviously do your homework. You need to know like 95 to 99% of it, and then you can rely on that, that 1 to 5%, as a visual cue from every now and then. But I always use the phrase be, don't ever be glued to a prompter or iPad or whatever. It's okay to glance, just don't be glued, because if you're glued to it, you obviously did not do your homework.
Well, that's
And
exactly, you got
yeah,
to know the assignment.
you got to know the assignment inside and out. But if you need to lean on a crutch here and there, not, no big deal. Now, for those of you guys watching the YouTube, I do have a screenshot that I like to share every now and then. This is I'll
Like and
illustrate.
subscribe.
I'll illustrate with words for those of us just listening. But what we're looking at here is this was not a staged screenshot. This was an actual screenshot of an alternative grunge band in the Dallas area last year. Some good friends of mine, actually. And they the two singers, these singers aren't in the band anymore, so I don't mind using this as the example. But but the two singers, the gentleman on the left is he's looking down and at his iPad. It's about chest level, and he's kind of fixated on it. And the guy on his left, is he's looking down. Not only is he looking down his iPad intently, he's not singing. He's scrolling. He's using his hands scrolling. And then there's another picture of him literally leaning into his iPad with his microphone as if he's singing to the iPad, not to the audience. Okay, and I call it the three deadly sins. When you're using something like this as an iPad that's more or less in your face, squinting and scrolling. You're scrolling with your hands. So when I saw this, I'd already started the company at this point. But when I saw this, I was like, dude, I've got to get a picture of this because this is the story. This is the story I want to tell because these guys are not unique. This
You
is
know how they
happening on so many
say,
stages all
you
across the
know,
country. Yeah.
you know how they say a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Hmm.
This picture is worth 1,000 teleprompters. I mean, or black box prompters to be
There you go.
specific. But
Yeah.
it's looking at these pictures. And again, folks, like and subscribe and check out the videos on YouTube. We have a video of every episode coming out, plus more content. Looking at these pictures, what comes to mind is the displeasure I have when I see that interference when I'm lucky to be close enough to the band. Because if I'm at a concert at this point in my life, I want to not only do I want to enjoy it, I want the people performing the show to be enjoying performing it as well. And that just doesn't look fun.
Hmm.
Like that, it looks like, you have to actively disengage in order to then re-engage. That's like being a comedian at a show with a bad host, and you have to spend the first minute of your set trying to win the audience back over to your side.
Yeah.
Like you're taking yourself out of the moment of your own volition. I think like those three sins, swiping, squinting, and scrolling equals the worst sin of them all, which is straying.
Yeah.
And that's something that, especially with as a musician, you could kind of get away with it, but as a comedian, like was talking about before, if you get lost in that hole and you stray too far, um, you could find yourself out at sea without a paddle.
Yeah. Exactly. And so, I keep coming back to this picture. And by the way, this band is no disrespect at all. I mean, again, this is happening across stages all across the country, but this band is super talented. I mean, they're so good. The energy, the vibe is incredible. But if there was one thing that I had to nitpick on, it was the over reliance of using their tablet or music stand or whatever it is to lean on their lyrics. And so again, I come back to this because it was just validation for me that there is a massive, massive need in the market for something like this. But again, the teleprompter is only going to get them halfway there. They still have to really do their homework and commit to memory the songs. Only use it to glance at, not to stay constantly fixated on it. So okay, I'll get off my high horse. I just wanted to
No, it's
bring that
great
up.
for is no, that was awesome. I mean, it's great for, and again, like I mentioned with my comedy set lists, they're exactly that. They're set lists. I have maybe for my last show that I did, there may have been 15 words in total written down on this piece of paper. My set was 18 minutes.
Hmm.
So, it's not like I'm looking down. And there are definitely moments on the tape where you can see me glance over, but that's all it
Sure.
is like, it's kind of like, I'm trying to figure out what joke would work best next. And I then get right back into it. I'm never reading a diatribe. And also, if anybody can take 15 words and turn that into 18 minutes,
Hmm.
I mean, you're not reading off a prompter and having the show go well at the same time. There's a difference between assistance and straight up help.
Hmm.
Like there's a fine line between, and I think that what your device offers is a great deal of help, but there is onus, just as with any technology, on the user to utilize the technology properly.
Hmm.
And
Absolutely.
something else you mentioned a little bit earlier in the interview that I think is worth noting. Now, this prompter is pedal operated, I believe you mentioned.
It is, yes. So of course you don't. It's not a touch screen because that defeats the purpose. That would just be a bigger iPad, and we're not trying to compete with Apple. And so, but to navigate, right, to turn your pages, we have a three button pedal. Okay, this is the standard pedal. It's actually a couple pounds. It's fairly heavy. It's pretty heavy duty. This pedal's been around for many years, long before we were a thing. I think they used it for transcriptionists and whatnot. But you have basically the smaller one here on the left is to go back, like previous. This big one in the middle is like hitting the inner key. It's like select, and then this one is to go forward. Okay, um, or to go next. And there's some things we can do, or we can double tap some stuff to get into kind of the auto transcribe menu and different things. And then we also have a new pedal called the heavy metal pedal. Now that one I'm gonna show let me just kind of quickly bring up. I'm gonna show a screenshot
Yeah, go
of
for it.
that guy because we just launched this last week, and we build these ourselves. This is unique, proprietary to Black Box Prompter, and it is a USB pedal. We are talking to a company called AirTurn, and they specialize in making Bluetooth pedals. So for those that don't want to be connected or tethered with a USB cable, we are going to be launching a Bluetooth pedal as well. Well, it's not our launch; it's a partnership with them. So an AirTurn pedal. But if you would like, if your listeners are like, you know what, I really like the form factor or the feel of like a guitar stomp box. Okay. We just launched what we call the heavy metal pedal. Let me see if I can quickly just bring that up
And go
on
ahead
my
and
screen
while
here.
while you're looking for that, I will remind our listeners and viewers that the code Secondhand Talent will get you 10% off your entire purchase. So if this is something you're interested in, folks, there's a great way to get an even better price on it than there already is.
Yeah, and so this is an upgrade. There's a bit more material, but this we actually have a metal shop next door to us that we partnered with them to actually make this metal. But what you're looking at are three stomp switches, and then more recently, I love to show the elephant trying to stomp on it, just to show that this thing is likely. Again, this is a bit anecdotal because I haven't done any actual real studies with it, but this is likely the heaviest, dutiest. I'm making up words now, but it's super rugged. It's super rugged.
It's
Because
the ruggediest.
the ruggediest. So you're going, show to show or whatever. And so we're very, very proud of this pedal too. And this came out of really out of response for our customers. Our customers, like, man, one of our first guys, he's in several projects. He's actually one of our kind of our spokespeople. He's one of our early adopters too. And he's like, man, I love it, but the first pedal you gave me, it's real sensitive. He's like, I wear these boots, and I accidentally barely touch it, and it turns the page, and so I need something like a guitar pedal. And so we took exactly what he said, and that's why we came up with this heavy metal version. And so for those of you who don't have the luxury of seeing this, on video, think of just how a guitar stomp box works. It's a foot switch, right? A push down foot switch, and imagine three of those, just one, two, three, same application as the previous select and next, but in the form of stomp switches. And so that's all it is. And
And
it's 14 gauge steel. Yeah,
does that one have the same multifunctionality as your original pedal as well?
correct. Yeah,
Awesome.
because at the end of the day, these are just keys like on a keyboard. Think of it as a three button mouse.
So
That's all it is.
what was the reasoning for being pedal operated? Is it also was also just to keep in line with the site, and also what was that development like?
Yeah, so the pedal we needed a way to navigate so you're not squatting down to have to or use a keyboard.
I would
You know,
imagine that would
you
be the number one issue.
yeah,
Yeah.
that yeah. And so really if you could picture I'll stop sharing here. If you could picture your pedal it's going to sit in front of your prompter, okay? Um, your audience has no idea. I mean, it's a subtle thing,
And we'll
right? It's like
show
when
a
somebody plays
photo of it.
when somebody plays the piano. You don't really see when they're playing piano. You don't really see them. People forget there's three pedals on a piano.
Hmm.
There's
Absolutely.
sustain and some other. There, people don't realize they're even stomping on those pedals, and so because it's hidden from the audience's viewpoint.
One of my favorite pianists in the world, Holly Bowling, who I'll have seen at the time of this airing a few months ago, but a few months from now. One of the great joys I have watching her play. She plays a classic Baby Grand on the road, and she's stomping away the entire. It's one of my favorite things about her show is that she plays the whole piano.
Nice, nice. Love that. Love that. But yeah, and the trick, Steiner, was trying to get all the cool functionality navigation by using only three pedals or three buttons.
Another thing I was gonna bring up, it seems to the ear that that would be really limiting.
Yeah, it is. But at the same time, you've heard the power of threes, right? There is something about the number three. When you start adding more pedals, exponentially it creates more confusion, especially if you're in the moment of
Mm,
something. Okay,
mm.
when you keep something this simple, it's very logical. Go back, go forward, selects in the middle, and people grasp and they learn it like this. You start adding a fourth or fifth button. You start, what does that button do again? And yes, true, it gives you more functionality, but for the masses, it can create more confusion.
It's like the
And,
fifth button in Guitar Hero. Yes, you
yeah,
wanna know, you want it to be there, you want that level of difficulty to exist, but you never wanna play on that level
yeah.
because that's you're moving it's too there's too much variation, there's too much room for error. So I'm really hearing what you're saying there.
Yeah, but that being said, we do include with every purchase, we include a wireless keyboard and a mouse because you have the ability to edit your song set lists, notes, whatever it is you're using your visual cue for. You're able to make those edits directly on the box. Remember, there's a computer inside. You don't have to go back and forth between your MacBook, your laptop, into with a thumb drive. I mean, you could. I mean, it supports thumb drive. You can, but if you don't, why use a thumb drive if you don't have to? If you can make those edits directly in the box, go for it. And so we built it. So we always say, hey, use the keyboard and mouse to do your prep work, to prepare. Put your set list in order. Make tweaks to your lyrics or whatever whatever your script is. But yeah, don't you wouldn't use a keyboard and mouse typically in a real world environment. That just wouldn't look good. Now that being said, there is some other function. I touched on this earlier. You can now if this is connected to Wi-Fi, right? You can actually go out to the internet. And why would I want to go out to the internet? Well, maybe you need to pull down a song that's not already preloaded on your box. Maybe you need to pull up a chord chart that's not already on your box. You can go out to Ultimate Guitar, which is the world's leading guitar chart website. It has millions and millions of guitar charts and tabs, and literally see it right there in real time and pull it up just like you would a normal computer.
Good
Okay,
time to let our folks know that this is good for both lyrics and sheet music. This is not just for lyrics, folks.
correct. You can pull up sheet music on this thing. It supports real books and fake books, which are the big PDF files that spawn multiple catalogs of sheet music. It supports all of that because yeah, again, it's a monitor with a computer with some intelligence in the form factor of a really nice black cabinet. Now, can I take a moment and kind of geek out on some of the construction here? Yeah, so I want to take a moment and just quickly go over the hardware of the black box prompter and really what sets it apart. So what you're looking at here is this is this is a cabinet, a black cabinet made out of 9-ply Baltic birch plywood. And this is Duratec speaker paint, which is the speaker paint used in the speaker industry. And what you have here is a polycarbonate screen. Polycarbonate is the same kind of plastic they use to like weatherproof TVs on patios. It's about 30 times stronger than plexiglass. We've had customers say that beer bottles have fallen on this thing, mic stands have fallen on this thing, and it didn't flinch. We knock on wood, we have yet to get a return back because of a busted screen.
That's pretty
Um, so
impressive.
so it's yeah, we spent extra to get the upgraded clear spring shatterproof shield, we call it. Um, Speaking of shield, I've got a magnetic cover. So in the corner here are little magnets. You have this felt kind of padding, and then you can just protect the screen, and it snaps right into place. Um, so that helps protect it from scratches.
And it just lifts right off there.
Yeah, it's real easy. You
That's
just this
incredible.
again. And if I were to pick, I'm not going to because we've got cords and stuff here. But if I were to just like pick it up there's a big handle on the other side. Pick it up, and
I
it's
was
not.
I was
This
just
isn't going to fall
I
off.
was just
Yeah,
wondering if that was something you bolted out. There was that, so there is another handle on the right hand
there is a
side.
scoop
Okay,
handle.
cool,
Yeah, there's a
fantastic.
kind of a big scoop handle on the other side to carry
So
it. You obviously wouldn't want to grab it from this handle because
no,
the lid will just come right off.
so
Yeah,
just kind of the way I'm visualizing it, just for our listeners who are not viewers, it kind of resembles just your prototypical wedge monitor that you would see on a stage. It's indistinguishable as far as I can tell from imagining how it would look on the other side from any other wedge that
you're
might be on the
exactly right.
stage.
I wish I could turn it around and show you, but I'll
We'll
just
post
kind
a
of
picture. We'll
illustrate.
put a picture up on the
Yeah,
screen.
yeah. But you're right. From the audience's perspective, it looks like a speaker wedge, a speaker monitor. It's literally a black box. It's actually smaller than a speaker wedge. It doesn't take up near the amount of real estate. It's about maybe 2/3 the width of your standard speaker. Now, the size of the screen is 24 inches, and then we have some ports on the side. We have a couple USB ports to stick your pedal into or to stick your thumb drive into if you need it, or if you have like a Bluetooth dongle to connect your wireless keyboard or mouse. Of course, you have your power switch. You also have an HDMI input on here where you can, or output, technically it's an output because you're going to go out and you can connect another box, which we call the Echo. Now, the Echo looks like this, but it doesn't have the Raspberry Pi motherboard inside because it's just a mirror, if you will, of what's on here. So if you want to
Hmm.
connect extra boxes and all be in sync at the same time,
Oh,
you can do
like
that through
I
through
thought
HDMI.
about the name. I'm like, now I get it. Like,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
echoing. It's
yeah.
echoing whatever's on here. Now, that's kind of going the cheap route, right? Because the Echoes are cheaper because you don't have the motherboard inside. But hardware wise, it's more or less the same. Okay. Now, we also support wireless sync. Let's say you had 2 or 3 black box prompters, not Echoes, but you had three black box prompters. This thing has the tech inside where you can get them all on the same network. You can have one as the master and the other as the receivers. One as the controller and the other as receivers, right?
Wirelessly.
So wirelessly,
God
right? And
damn.
it's not Bluetooth. It's using your wireless local network
Yeah.
signal, if you
So
will.
so so basically, so it takes your Wi-Fi signal and uses that to communicate in real time with the
Correct.
other machines that are in sync with it, and you can designate one to be the master control, affecting changes to the other.
100%. You,
Wow,
you, you. I couldn't have said it. I couldn't have said it better myself, Steiner.
that's
Um,
outstanding. I
but I can
love
take it a
that.
step further. I can take it a step further. Let's say I could see this in a church environment. Let's say you have a somebody that needs chords, right? But the singer's like, I don't want the chords. That clutters it up. You could have, even though they're in sync, you could have one show the chords and the other not show the chords, right?
So they're still
So
individually controlled, even though they're synced up.
well, no, that not exactly. let me put it this way. They're going to be synced up. So if I turn the page on this one, it's going to turn the page for everybody. And we all have to have them on the same font size, obviously, because if they're on the same font size, you're going to have, it'll all get discombobulated. But in terms of chords, we do have kind of a special feature where it recognizes when there's a chord, right? There's logic in there that recognizes when there's a chord and when there's not. And so we can strip out the chords and hide the chords if we need to. And again, obviously, this is all text-based stuff I'm talking about. I'm not talking about sheet music. Sheet music is it's going to be an image file or a PDF file. Okay, but getting back to the hardware. Sorry, I geeked out on some of the features again.
That's all right, hey, man. We're here for it.
But you see this little guy. This is a your 1/8 inch or 3mm headphone jack. So you can add a speaker to this. So why would I want to add a speaker? Well, maybe you want to just do instant karaoke. Maybe you want to pull up YouTube.
What?
YouTube has a lot of karaoke songs. You can literally pull up karaoke, YouTube, or go out to a website that has, I'm sure there's websites that do karaoke, and then boom, and then.
So it also has practical personal functionality.
Sure, poor man's karaoke. Now, we don't have a mic input on it, so you'd have to figure out what your mic is going to do.
God damn.
But in terms of having your lyrics, your words, and the song being played, yeah, you could do that. I mean, we don't market these as poor man karaoke boxes, but
right.
But people are like, well could I?
But it would still, it follows to me logically that it would still function as any other teleprompter,
yeah,
for whatever teleprompting purposes you may choose to
absolutely.
employ.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So just to finish up the hardware piece of it, this screen actually, if it gets dust inside, you can actually take these. You be gentle with it, but you can actually pop off these tabs and you can wipe underneath the screen, which is kind of cool. Or the shield, I should say, the protective shield, the shatterproof shield. And then one last plug, I have to say, this is an American-made product. We are in the North Texas area. Each one of these, obviously, it's cut out by a professional CNC machine, but each one of these is hand assembled by our master woodworker, who has over 50 years experience in woodworking. So I mention that because, guys, this is not a cheaply made product. Okay, there's a lot of time, effort, energy, and craftsmanship that goes into building each one of these by hands, and it goes through a rigorous inspection as well. And so don't think that we're mass producing these on an assembly line where we have a deal with China. That is absolutely the furthest thing from the truth. And so when you think about all of the effort that goes into making one of these, not just the cool software we talked about, all the development, because we have hundreds of thousands of dollars of intellectual property just from the software, worth of software inside, but also the design of the hardware. There's a lot that goes into it. Now, being that this is paint, it is prone. You're going to get, just like you would any speakers when you lug them around from event to event, they're prone to scuff marks and chipping. So we do include a touch-up kit of paint. I even see a little tiny chip.
And do you guys offer service for the products and repair if necessary?
Yeah. So 30. Okay. So we have let's talk about the warranty first, because we do have a 30-day money back guarantee. If you're like, hey, you don't like it, you send it back and we'll refund your money minus the shipping. But we do offer, if you register it, there's a place to register online. It goes from a 1-year parts and labor warranty to a 3-year, which is pretty much unheard of in this market, to back something up for 3 years. You call us two years and 11 months later, and you're like, dude, it's flickering. If we can't fix it remotely, or you send it back to us and we can't fix it, we'll end up sending you a new box on our
dime. That's that is
we stand behind
of.
we stand behind what we sell. Because we've been on the receiving end as consumers, right? And we've all been screwed because of a shoddy product or shoddy service or what have you. We've all been there. We all have our horror stories, and we didn't want to be, that company that abandons their customer. We really, really are very, very proud of everything we've accomplished so far in short time. A lot of our customers, it's almost, dare I say, it's like a cult following. People that get one of these things, they absolutely love it. They're proud of it. We even feature our bands that have these. We feature them on our website about once a month, artist of the month. of them using one in the real world. But man, people that use it, they absolutely just adore it, and we love getting feedback from customers like that. It means a lot. It really makes us proud.
This particular moment at the time of this taping, I believe that artist is the one you referred to earlier from Dire Straits as the artist of the month. And
Yes.
as I was perusing the site earlier, doing my last minute research, as one is wont to do, I noticed your little note at the top of the site, the banner that says, "Please allow 4 to 5 days lag time, from your order." And now I understand that, and that each piece is, built to order basically. Like the technology, like you said, is there and ready, but as far as craftsmanship and assembly goes, the only real equivalent that we've had here on Secondhand Talent so far are last season, my friend, and season one, my friend Mike Layton, and leading off this season last month, Leo Elliott from Scarlet Fire Guitars, two incredible luthiers. Shout out to Mike and Leo. Uh, Making those pieces, I mean, that's months of craftsmanship, of sanding down wood, of choices, of making all of the different pieces, crafting it out of whole cloth or whole tree in this case. But
Hmm.
really, you know, as you very well put, or as you put very well earlier, these are not assembly line manufactured pieces. These are TLC, one at a time, made to order.
Absolutely.
And
Hmm.
folks, if you forgot me saying it before, use the code Secondhand Talent for 10% off your entire order. So talk to me just a little bit about what it's like seeing this device in use as a creator.
Wow. So, man, first of all, I'm going to step before I answer that question. I do want to step back and just talk about how, I've been an entrepreneur for many years in different businesses. I've worked for the man, but this is my first attempt to do something really to sell a product in the music industry. Okay. Now I've been in the music industry because I've been doing the cover band thing and I manage these bands and I talk to promoters and AV people and blah, blah, blah. But this is my first really attempt to manufacture a product and sell it to the music industry. And so when we went to NAM in California a couple of months ago and seeing people's reaction to something like this, and they immediately grasped it. They're like, "Wow, that is really cool." They got it immediately, and the feedback that we got is like, "Man, it's about time." Where has this been? And that was validation for me. It really meant a lot to see uh, them react that way. But going back to your question, what's it like to see it in the real world? Man, I mean, I was at that show, the Dire Straits tribute. I was at their very very first debut, and Andy Mark Knopfler was using my prompter and or the black box prompter wasn't mine. He bought it. He was using it at his debut, and I didn't even realize he was using it until like at the very end of the show. Why? Because he did such a good job because he did his homework, right? But 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 I would walk close to the stage. I'm like, oh yeah, that's he brought it and he's using it. And his bass player got an echo, a few weeks after that because his bass player wanted to cheat as well. No. But it was really cool to see that, and then it just sees people all over the country text me directly and be like, "Hey man, I just had a gig Friday night and they love the prompter. Let me send you a video." Because that's the kind of relationship we have with our customers. Guys, we're not some ivory tower, pompous, arrogant. I mean, we're everyday people just like yourselves, and trying to find a gap in the market, and trying to give a tool to performers of all kinds to make their jobs easier, and to deliver an even better performance than they did from
and
the from their past gig.
And one note I'd just like to touch on before we wrap up here. First of all, this has been just a wonderful time. I'm sure we could talk for hours more about this, but I do want to finish off by touching on one of the things you mentioned in the beginning of this interview, which is that about uh, our favorite aging musicians and the boon that this offers to them. And in college, my minor was gerontology. It's the study of age, for folks who don't know. And, you know, I would just love it if you would take a moment to just expound a little bit on, the importance of a product like the Black Box Prompter for our favorite aging musicians, and how this changes the game for them.
Great question, Steiner. I'm going to bring up two examples. Okay. Um, well, first of all, our average age buyer is roughly in their mid to late 50s. I would say we don't get a lot of younger millennials and Gen Zers, because they don't have the vision issues, they don't have the memory related issues that our aging audience has. Okay. And one example is yes, we'll start with memory. How many tens of thousands of brain cells are we killing off every day? Especially for those of us who like to enjoy an alcoholic beverage.
You're not wrong. You're not, yeah.
And so that's going to happen naturally, and it's exacerbated by certain lifestyles. Okay, granted, especially the lifestyle in the music industry. You're throwing gig. Okay, so that goes without saying. So our memory's not getting any sharper. Okay, it is getting worse daily, whether we admit it or not. And that's why I continue to say, don't be ashamed of using a prompter. And even the pros use them. And I mentioned John Bon Jovi, and even Eddie Vedder a few months ago was in the middle of playing Better Man, and he just blinked, and he was very embarrassed. But man, if you had a black box prompter, it could have saved him from the embarrassment. So
Eddie, reach out. We'll get you a better discount than my code.
There you go. Yeah, Eddie, call me. We'll talk. So there's that. There's definitely the memory issues. But I'm going to share a story, a true story. I got a call from a customer a few months ago, who said that he had just finished a gig, and he had such a bad vision impairment. He had a detached retina. Okay. And his iPad was like this close. It's basically 2 inches from my face, blocking his face just so he could make out the words. And he thought he was going to have to just pack it up and say, I'm done. I'm done. I cannot see. And I said, look, before you give up on your dreams, I said, let's give it a shot. Let's try it, because I didn't mention this thing has 11 font sizes. You can go from extra small to like 7. If you think of t-shirt sizes, right? You can go up to 6, 7XL, like 7XL, right? Massive fonts.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
I said, let's find a font size. Let's find a jumbo sized font that works for you. And remember, this thing is nearly 3 times the size of your biggest iPad. So that alone, everything's bigger. Everything's magnified. Okay. But now we increase the font size, it's magnified even more. Okay. So yes, anybody listening who has a visual impairment or knows somebody that performs with that impediment of their vision not being as good as it used to be in their younger days, this is a game changer. So back to the guy. So I told the guy, I said, let's give it a shot. And remember, we have the 30-day guarantee. If it doesn't work out, send it back. No problem. No harm, no foul. And so, let him try it out for a week or so. Caught up with him on the phone. I said, hey, what do you think? He said, oh my gosh, I don't have to give up gigging. I can keep doing what I've been doing. You are a lifesaver. And wow. It's stories like that keep me going.
That's really special. That's real special.
And I thought, man, I need to get a hold of the associations that help visually impaired folks. I'm sure there's a number of them out there. So because we have something for them. Another story. This isn't so much on the aging side, but in terms of disability side.
Real quick on
that.
I was just gonna say
Yeah, go
real
ahead.
quick on that note, RP, retinitis pigmentosa, runs in our family, and for as long as I can remember, my grandparents, it's a degenerative eye condition, and for as long as I can remember, my grandparents have been donating to causes to look for a cure for that
Wow.
specifically, and uh, it is because of their philanthropy that when I was very young, I was exposed to places like Second City, before I even started doing stand up. And, that charity opened my eyes to that, I think is a really beautiful thing. But I also, I've been wearing glasses myself since third grade. I keenly understand, those issues and experienced it when I did my most recent show. And yeah, it does make a massive difference. And just real quick before you touch on this next story about the disability side, not all disabilities are visual, or visible. And sometimes people have things going on where they need, a little aid, and that's not to knock or shame anyone. Sometimes people just need some help. It's not about,
Sure.
a cop out or anything like that. Even maybe jokingly, we might rib at it as such. It's a perfectly appropriate way to meet the rising tide of whatever issues you're facing.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah. The other visual example or vision example I was going to give was I had a gentleman approach me at my booth when I was at NAM, and we're talking about the font sizes. He's like, "That's great." He goes, "I'm colorblind, so reds and greens look nearly identical.
Mm.
Would you be able to, color code it in such a way, the chords could be in one color that aren't right?" Yeah, and so we're going to be building basically a colorblind mode,
Wow.
to help those because it does support colors, of course, but wouldn't it be nice to have just a toggle, a switch that says boom, colorblind mode, and then it's going to avoid reds and greens. It's going to use whatever the alternating color is, so they can distinguish the difference between the two. So that again, we listen to our customers, and we can't take every single suggestion, but any that we really feel strongly about that we think makes sense, we will absolutely pursue it. One more disability example, and then we can move on. I was perusing. I'm on the shout out to my buddy Steve. He runs the world's largest cover band Facebook group. He has nearly 1 million followers.
Wow.
Didn't know there were that many cover band nerds around the world, but there are. And he has a group that has, I don't know, 130,000 active members. I mean, it's a very, very active. He gigs on
Holy.
Bourbon Street every weekend. I've been there a few times. He's a great guy. Well, yesterday on his cover band central on his Facebook group, there was a gentleman. And the question about iPads in the face come up all the time. But there's this one, and this one really pulled at my heartstrings, Steiner. This guy was sick and tired of hearing people dogging the use of an iPad or in this case a prompter, because this gentleman had a brain injury when he was fighting in the Iraqi war. And so his disability, he says he doesn't have much of a short-term memory, but he's a hell of a performer and wants to keep performing. So he was really, I don't want to say he felt ashamed, but he was sick and tired of hearing all the negativity around the iPad. And I'm guilty, obviously. So you heard me earlier talking about the negativity of an iPad. And again, it's to me, it's the look of having that thing blocking the view of the audience. But I quickly came to my senses. I said, dude, I said, you know what? Again, no shame in having a prompter, especially in your case, right? But if you don't want to have it chest level, face level, you want to get it out of that area, get it onto the floor and still be able to use it as a visual cue. You certainly can. There's a solution for you. So anyway, it just goes back to say that any of us that are struggling with vision issues, memory issues, this could be a really nice tool to add to your arsenal, to where you don't look like you're over relying on a crush to where it takes away from your performance. You can have it out of the face onto the floor. Looks like a speaker. I know we've already covered that, but it's just again, it makes it easier so you can deliver that performance with full confidence.
Well, that's really powerful, man. Thank you for sharing those stories. It really, it is wild to hear, and it's exactly like I was saying before. Not all disabilities are visible, and it's something that my mother used to say often when we were growing up, I'm not a mind reader, and I've taken that axiom with me. We never know what kind of day someone else is having. So,
True.
and in that same way, we never know what sort of things the other person might be dealing with. So it's always best to accept those situations with grace and meet it with a smile on your face.
Yep. Love it. Well said. Well
Th-
said.
Thank you. Well, Tori, I think what you guys are doing over there at Black Box is pretty damn incredible. And I'm really grateful that we had the opportunity to talk about a lot of this, to hear more about the product, about you, about some of the motivations for doing this, about the feedback you've been hearing from your customers, the practical application. I've learned a lot. And I really hope that our viewers and listeners have learned something as well. And just a reminder, use code Secondhand Talent for 10% off your whole purchase at blackboxprompter.com. Tori, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, Steiner, thank you, man. I appreciate everything you're doing, and man, keep on with your mission, man. It's a great service what you're doing.
Well, I sincerely appreciate that. And folks out there, I sincerely appreciate all of you. This is Steiner with another episode of Secondhand Talent, and we will see you next Wednesday. And that's podcast. There we go. We're done. We did
Nice.
it. Yeah, we did it.
Yeah, we got into quite a bit.